Hello and welcome to Beyond the Words. My name is Bruno Combine. Today, my guest is a localization specialist whose name means golden flame in her native tongue. She's also a prolific post and blog writer. She writes about anything from coding to AI to human psychology, algorithms, and localization, of course. Joining us from Tirana, Albania, Flogerta Lesi. Hello and welcome to Beyond the Words, Localization Edition.
Hello, Bruno. Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to be invited on your podcast.
It's a pleasure having you on the podcast, Flogerta. Can I call you Flo?
Yes, please. Yes, everyone calls me that.
Exactly. I see that you signed everything Flo. So let's go for Flo. First of all, I heard that Albania is a great tourist destination. I know people who've been to Albania and they just rave about it. So why should we all pack our bags and go and visit Albania?
Actually, yeah. Actually, it is a very beautiful country. That's one of the main reasons why you should come and visit. But it's not only that. The last several years, the last few years, the tourism has become like the main point for Albania in general, for the politicians, for the culture, everything about tourism. Although I'm not the best when it comes to marketing tourism destinations, I can say a few things that I know are definitely worth mentioning about why you should visit Albania. First of all, Albania is home to some of the most beautiful beaches in Europe. From north to south, we have a gorgeous and long coastline, great food, friendly and kind people, safe, which is very important, especially for women, but most travelers. Welcoming, we're sunny, very sunny. We're one of the sunniest countries in Europe. Cheap, although to be honest, these past few years, the prices have gone up because of inflation, but especially on the coastline and in the south of Albania. However, if you're in for a great adventure and mostly cheap prices, you will find them in rural areas or mountain tourism, and of course, lots of surprises. So I guess these are enough as reasons to come and visit it.
Absolutely, sea and mountains, and yeah, the friends went to the mountain areas, and they really raved about the wilderness and the beauty of it. So yeah, it's definitely on my list. Now going to localization. You're a localization specialist, and you're very passionate about localization, and what you're writing about it proves it. And localization in the true sense of the word, like really localizing content. Can you tell us how important it is in your view, and of course, why we should translate ideas and not words, as we say here at Zeitgeist?
I absolutely love the question. Thank you, Bruno. When it comes to languages, because localization has to do a lot with it, and that's its center point, I'm kind of a geek. So I speak 3 foreign languages, and I'm proficient in my native language. That should be mentioned because not everyone is proficient in their native language. That's why I went on to finish my studies for translation and interpreting. Then I became a content localization expert, and with a dash of translation expertise. And I remembered specifically when I was in college how it was basically drilled into our head that a good translator knows how to translate ideas, not words. And while we call it now localization, it's actually the basic terminology of your average college student when it comes to becoming a proficient translator. About the term localization, I stumbled upon this term at the end of 2019, just a month or two before the COVID pandemic hit, when I was participating in a cyber security conference. And they mentioned that with the booming of AI, quite ahead of the time, those guys, to be honest, mind you, we are talking about 2019, AI was anything but what it is right now. And they put the emphasis on localization, whether it's translating, content, you name it, it doesn't matter. They said that if you want to survive in the future job market, localization is the right ticket for it, especially for businesses. Okay, so I was fascinated to say the least. Then when I started working at the at my current job, which was basically just a baby startup 5 years ago, I and the product owner of that time collaborated on translating the app for the locals, Albanians, because it was its target audience. And here's the thing, translating an app, a big data, or a piece of software isn't as easy as it looks, because you have to take in consideration so many things, so many details. And localization is important, if not crucial, because through the expertise of the translators you hire, you get to know your users better and you get to approach them as they want to be approached, because you cannot speak in the same way to an Italian or a Chinese or a Japanese or an Albanian. They're completely different approaches. And where an app can successfully boom in a country, if not localized properly, it can fall flat in another one. So, of course, language is the best tool, no? And localization is the best solution when it comes to translate the idea and the concept of the app or the software or data or whatever to get as close as possible to the user and, I mean, convince him to consume your product. For example, I'm going to give an example why it's so important, localization. When Tesla presented its vehicles in China many years ago, before self-driving was a thing, a customer crashed the Tesla car, almost lost his life, because the website was poorly localized in Chinese. And it has mentioned self-driving when actually self-driving was not possible. He clicked on it, he did the experiment, he went to drive, he crashed, almost lost his life. So we are not probably life-saving doctors, but if we lose track to certain important things, we can become life saviors.
Yeah.
That's why a good marketing strategy with market research and applying the best localizing techniques might be the perfect formula that makes your product stand out, global, or, well, to sell it the best way.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's literally vital to have good localization. And yes, and sometimes a lot of people who don't work in the industry think that any translator or even LSP will be just as good as the next, and often they take shortcut. That is vital, last hurdle, last step of a campaign. And unfortunately, sometimes that's where the shortcuts are taken, where in fact great care should be taken. As you say, it can, something that's not done well in a country can fall completely flat. So all the investment that you've put up front on your global campaign for that very last stage can be completely ruined. So yeah, super important. And well, one part of your marketing is SEO, of course. And then I like the post that you wrote about SEO, and you likened it to a doctor's prescription, where you take the right medication in the right amount at the right time and over the right period. And localizing SEO adds another dimension to that. And what would you say are the key ingredients to good SEO, so search engine optimization, localization?
Yeah, to get that, the same analogy, because like I love making good analogies, and I was surprised that that analogy was expected in such a good way from my followers on LinkedIn. No offense to doctors, because I made the analogy with doctors. They are lifesavers, as I said before, and but I wanted to get off of my chest that I used it as an analogy. We are not saving lives every day, but is as important as a job as what they do. So yeah, to answer your questions and to keep the analogy going, localizing SEO is pretty much the same thing as a doctor prescription, but targeted to a certain area alone. And here is where it gets interesting. When you use SEO, you go to Google and follow its new rules. the latest ones. You go detail over detail, and you have to be part of this never-ending learning curve of improvements, of changes that Google goes on and forever about it. But here the thing, localizing SEO is very specific, and it's so much different than just localizing, just making an SEO strategy the normal way or the generic way, if I can say it like that, because it studies cultural nuances, language influences, and it narrows down by targeting a specific group of people, and it's not just picking keyword or niche. You go so much further. So just to continue with analogy, when you I had to go to make an allergy test not too long ago at my doctor's, and she made me a few tests along the way. They were around 200 pieces of allergy tests that I had to do, and I asked by curiosity, where do these tests come from? How do you manage? I know that there are thousands upon thousands of allergy tests. Why are you doing to me just 200? And she said that these tests are based on the country, the climate, the area you grew up in during all your life. And we pick and choose specifically what to test about you. So if a northern person from north of Albania would come to make the allergy tests, I would do to him another test, not to you that you are born in the south of Albania. So in a way, they're localizing their tests, because it's based on the place you grew up, the culture and everything else, the climate, what food you have eaten. Localizing SEO is pretty much the same. So you go a step further. You choose the strategy based on the culture of what the user understands there. You just don't go and make a generalized strategy. You choose specifically what works for those people. For example, a recipe, tava kosit, is an Albanian dish, a traditional one. And if I would go to make a strategy about tava kosit, that is the keyword in this example, it will rank only Albania. And the strategy for the localizing SEO would work only on Albania. And here is where it gets interesting. It will rank mostly in the south of Albania, and not in the north, because in the south is more common as a dish. So localizing SEO takes all these details in consideration to make the strategy work. And the beauty of it is it doesn't have to change too much over time. While generalizing SEO should improve over time to adapt with the changes of technology that Google and all these tech companies have, localizing the SEO strategy is a long-term strategy. So you apply it once, you make a few updates, and you continue to it because it is adapted to the language and the culture of your targeted client. So that helps businesses, in the long.
And it's again, the subject matter expertise is very important too, to know your target audience and know what language they use, what search terms they will likely use. I'll give you an example as well. We do a lot of SEO as part of our daily job, and for one of our clients, we basically do the localization, the transcreation, the SEO, and all that for them. And they use another LSP for reviews. So they basically outsource to a fairly large LSP. And we did a lot of research for some search engine optimization, and they have a specific glossary for certain key terms. Turns out that the glossary doesn't always match the terminology that's most used in a certain country, or and therefore we used the terms not the terms that were in the glossary, or at least in some of the keywords. We weren't using that, but the term that our research showed that actually subject matter experts will be more likely to do research using this term or this combination of terms.
Yes.
And then the reviewer started correcting that. So we had to start like explaining, no, that's not what SEO is about. It's not about following the glossary. Yes, there's a bit of that, of course, but it's more about know who you're talking to, know exactly what keywords they most likely will use, and then you'll get the best results. So I think, that's definitely an added element, if I may add.
Thank you. Yeah, it's absolutely that one. And I like how you said about the glossary part, because it's true. We have a brand book at my company where I work right now, and they have this glossary that they update, and we are usually very uptight to it, and we keep it unchanged, because the app aims to go global. But I've noticed that, some part you have to compromise because certain languages do not go well with that glossary. So yeah, that your example, it's like proven to the point.
And another thing that you write a lot about, and as I mentioned in my intro, is artificial intelligence. So, and again, you wrote a post, and I love the fact that you sort of, you did your own experiment, because, it's easy to say, oh, AI, blah, 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 it doesn't work. So you wrote an article using AI. So you prompted the generative AI engine to write an article about a certain subject. And you also wrote the same article by starting from scratch with good old human intelligence. And you compared the time it took to reach the results that you wanted. So can you tell us a bit more about the experiment and the outcome?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, that was a test, mostly because I wanted to prove to certain people here and in general that writing a good article or blog post, because there's a difference there, it's still a big deal. So the outcome was quite impressive, but not unexpected. All in all, I just wanted to prove to myself that if it would save time to me or not. And as I explained the whole process in my post, which I also aim to post the full experiment, it's quite a big job to do it because I will post it on my Medium channel. Basically, I had to do double work to correct and rewrite the text of the plagiarism generator. Sorry, I meant AI. Anyway, so just to explain the process in simple terms, before I went to the AI, I chose the same keywords because I'm an expert in SEO and I knew what I wanted to search for it. And then I didn't do exactly and directly the prompt, but I went and do it myself first. So I measured the time. It took me about 4 hours to draft, to write, to edit, 5 hours, something like that, to go back and forth in researching, and that without taking yet in consideration the optimizing process of the SEO, of strategically putting the keyword within the text, link based, and so many other things that SEO takes in consideration. So just the basic of creating the article, it took me 4 or 5 hours in researching and writing in a good way, with jokes, with story, with emotions, etc. And then I went and did the prompt after I was already prepared what I wanted to ask from the AI. So there's a difference here.
Yeah.
Because when someone gives you a keyword or something to write about, they just don't come to you and tell you, look, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Just give you the keyword and they say, right, we want to rank on that. Please work on it. So they
Yeah.
leave you all this job to it. They don't even prompt about it. So this already made the things easier for AI because I already knew what I wanted to ask AI. Because I wrote it in the human form and I created a good prompt, and I'm very good at prompting. And so I already made the job easier to AI by giving the keyword and the prompt of what I wanted. And the AI made a general concept of it, like generalization.
Yeah.
It created the subtitles, the subheadings, everything else, and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And I had to go back and scan it, and it gave me nothing, no emotions, no relatability, just generalized, good, corrected sentences and put out sentences, but not the essence of it. So yeah, then I went back forth and I had to correct and rewrite some part of the text. And I had to ask all over again AI, no, look, I wanted this one and I wanted this, and that and that. And still the AI didn't deliver. So basically, although the AI did all the drafting in the half an hour or something, after I specifically requested what I wanted, I still had to go back 1 hour or two just to give or to come close to the level of the article I was writing with the other keyword. And it included no jokes, no customer relation, no story behind it, just plain old generalization. So that's why I made that example, to prove that it's not just cutting short the process. The process is important, is part of the creative delivery, and it's needed. So AI does do that. I mean, many people are enough with just generic answers, but there are out there people who still want the quality and still want to be differentiated compared to what they consume, to the rest of the majority. So there's that. Hope it answers.
Yeah. So I mean, the experience showed that basically it almost takes more time to start from a bad job than trying to fix a bad job than doing a good job from start. And that's and I think that AI for content generation, as you said, very generic, no emotion, no storytelling, and it's so important. I mean, there is so content that's generated now. That it's so important to add those elements to stand out. If you just put something that's so generic and so bland and vanilla, nobody's going to read it anyway, and that in fact you're probably going to damage your brand.
It's true. It lowers the authority. So
yeah, and the same applies to the creative industries as well. I think your most recent post was about AI in creative industries such as filmmaking, design, photography. I saw there was a video by will.i.am as well that went very viral lately, where he said everybody's investing and talking about AI and investing in AI. There's so much money that goes into AI. And what about human intelligence? Because all that money that goes into artificial intelligence doesn't necessarily go to what we should be focusing on. And educating people, and human intelligence. I thought that was a very good point. But so, and again, in your post, you were very critical about how these AI generated content lack emotion. I mean, we're not even talking about the dangers of deepfake and all these things,
Absolutely. The false information, you have to recheck, because I forgot to mention that when I mentioned statistics within my article, that I had to do research and I had to go back and forth with AI, he gave me lies. So unexisting statistics. So I have to double check on that one. Imagine there are people who just write, scan, and publish. The danger of it.
And that comes from poisoning your data, and then there's a lot of attacks that are done on that, well, not just prompt injection, but poisoning as well, your training data, and as you say, that's where it can become very dangerous as well. So we're not even going there, but it lacks emotion, authenticity. And would you say the same applies to the translation localization industry? I'm going to throw machine translation in there as well, because there's a lot of confusion about AI and neural machine translation. From what I understand, the results are pretty much the same anyway.
Exactly. That's where I wanted to go, because I actually thought about it. Many people on LinkedIn commented on my post, and according to comments that I had there, there's something I have stumbled upon myself as a translator, working on projects, but on content as well. One freelance translator was an Italian one. I won't mention his name. He said something that, of course, was very logically put. He said, and I quote, "I am a professional translator, so I can give testimony on the issue in my field. In many fields, AI and machine translation, the one that you differentiated right now, are replacing human translators because the output quality is good enough for clients, with text often being post-edited by a real translator.
Yeah.
However, there are clients who demand great quality, and some fields still require the human touch. And it's very important to set the difference here. Who requires the human touch? Which are the fields that still need this great quality? For example, medical journals and studies or books still need the human translator, the human translator. AI cannot do it, this job. Whereas when it comes to simple, let's say, expressions, examples, you can always use the machine tools or AI, because they are practically the same with no difference, like Microsoft Translator, DeepL, or even Google Translation, because they're quite good. They're machine learning, and for just good enough, if you want good enough, you can always go for there and give the material to a real translator, and he will edit the certain things or mistakes, etc. So that's that. But if you want real quality, real thing, you have to go with a human translator, and books are that fields that still need it. For example, I remembered right now, when I was in college, a friend of mine was doing her PhD about Ulysses of James Joyce, and she was doing it in Albanian, and she was studying the translation strategy and process that the translator of Ulysses of James Joyce went through. And there's something that an AI cannot do to translate certain books of this kind of genre. 5 years to translate it and to pitch the idea for translating this classic of Ulysses. He went in Dublin. He lived for almost 6 months as the life of the author. He went and put the shoes of the author itself. He traveled, took the diary of the author itself. So he went so deep in the psyche, like almost wearing its skin, to bring the translation in Albanian. And that's such dedication, such a beautiful process. And if you read in Albanian James Joyce, Ulysses, and in English, and you will see, especially for people who know both languages, you will see almost no difference. And it's such a hard task that I never will do it. So imagine the dedication.
Yeah.
And if we want to go to the localization part, just to keep it on that area that we are talking together, why it's still important to use translators and localized experts is because the cultural nuances and that are local for the user that you intend to sell your product is something that AI cannot deliver. For example, Albanians are very direct and they are over friendly, and formality is quite a foreign concept to us. And of course, it's not that it's not used, but it's not like Italians. For example, as Albanians, when we speak, we can go with the you pronoun, the singular form, which is usually typical to address or refer a person directly. But an Italian would take offense on that. So if you would go and translate a part of an app or data or a software with the direct you, they would get offended. They need the cultural nuances. They need the lei or lui, the formal language. So that's where localization makes all the difference.
Totally. And from what you were saying as well, I mean, I loved your examples. And if we go as well to, the fact that one of our guests recently on the podcast said that localization is not monolithic. So, you have to think about what you use it for and for which target audience, but what you use it for as well. So, as you were saying, there is a space for machine translation and neural machine translation or AI or machine generated translation. but it depends what it's for, you know. If it's for just to, we were talking about search engine optimization. So if it's just about boosting your search engine optimization because you've got more localized pages on your website, but sort of deeper pages on your website that you would normally not translate because you don't have the budget or you don't have the time, and then you get it lightly post-edited just to make sure that, you know, it's not complete rubbish, then that's okay. But when it goes to your tier one content and something that is very high visibility, where again, you know, it's about putting your message across with emotions, with you know, your storytelling, etc., then I think it's not even it's a false economy to say, well, we'll do machine translation and post editing, because a good translator, transcreator will have to restart everything from scratch, and we know it from experience because some of our clients have you know, have tested that, and it's just a disaster, and it's actually a false economy, because you end up still paying for whatever you paid for that you know, machine translation, and because it's a retranslation, then you have to pay on top of that. So you wasted time and you wasted money. And sometimes trying to fix something that is not good takes a lot more time than doing a good thing from the beginning. And I love your culinary analogies that you used earlier. You know, between like different dishes in the north and south. If I use another culinary analogy, in France, when something doesn't work, you say that the mayonnaise didn't set. You know, so you're trying to make it set, but it's all liquid. So you add more oil and you add a bit more egg, and then it still doesn't set. You know, and
whereas in Albania we say the yogurt doesn't set. So
well, there you go.
In France is mayonnaise, in Albanian is yogurt doesn't set. So yes.
So there you go. We've done our own idioms and localization just now. So yeah, it's yeah, I think it's a never-ending conversation. There's a lot of education to do there for clients and for those people who don't really understand how it works and how important it is. Good. Now, well, you know, we talked a lot about Albania, and it's the first time we have an Albanian guest on our podcast, and Albanian is not a language that's commonly known, I would say, in the world, and even in Europe in general. I'm curious. Can you tell us a bit more about its origins and which language is it closest to?
Mm-hmm. Of course, the Albanian language, the love of my life, the reason why I went into translation. I don't know if every Albanian shares the same feeling as I, but every time I read a great book, you know, translated in Albanian or written in Albanian, I sigh with happiness. Like the dopamine effect, the dopamine shots I get, like with certain words and certain expressions are just beautiful. For example, not too long ago, I was taking a book for my daughter. I was buying a book for my daughter, and solar system was translated in Albanian not as solar system, sistemi diellor. This is the expression in Albania, but it was Obori diellor. Obori is courtyard, you know, or the yard, you know, of your home. So the way it was translated was so beautiful, and I liked it, and I bought the book. About the Albanian language, it's very old, and although it's part of the Indo-European languages, it's a completely separate branch. It has no sisters and no cousins, no similar language which I can compare to, like French or Italian are together, etc. So, and is also the surviving representative of the Albanoid branch. As for its origin, there are two hypotheses about it, about the Albanian language. The first one says that Albanian is a modern descendant of Illyrian, a language which was widely spoken in this region I live right now during classical times. But since we know very, very little about Illyrians, this assertion can neither be denied or confirmed from a linguistic standpoint of view. From historical and geographical perspective, although, we can proudly say that we are part of the branch of Illyrians. And the second hypothesis is says that Albanian is descendants of Thracian, another lost language that was spoken farther east than Illyrian. So I don't know its origin. It's veiled in mystery, but it's beautiful, and that's enough. And although we have borrowed, interchanged with other languages around Balkan based on economical, trade, and political exchanges, we're still pretty much alone as a branch. Our language has two dialects, if you want to know that part, because it's very beautiful. Said just shortly, Geg and Tosk, and a few nuances from one city to another. Geg is the closest to the original form and the original way the Albanian language was spoken by Illyrians many eons ago, while the Tosk dialect is used mostly formally as a formal spoken language. However, if you really, really want to experience the musicality and the beauty of Albanian language, because it's like tastes like honey to me, I would say you should go with the Geg dialect. The best translations ever made in our language of big legendary authors like Omar Khayyam, Shakespeare, or Dante Alighieri are all in the Geg dialect, just because these authors need the musicality of the language, and Geg dialect has it. So yeah, just to bring an example about translation.
Wonderful. And you're such a great ambassador of Albania, from not just from selling the tourism at the beginning of the podcast, but now making us all want to learn the language.
Oh, that is so tough to learn it. It's just that I love it, and it's so difficult. It has the nuances of the Latin alphabet and the Latin grammar, and is an analytic language, so not Germanic language. It has so many beautiful things, but it's so special. It's like the root of the language from Albania is so special because it can explain so many words around the world. It can explain through its root, and maybe the interchangeability, but is also because it's very old. Not too long ago in our country, in one of the oldest lake of Albania, was discovered a village 8,000 years old, the oldest in Europe. And it's like mind-blowing to think that there's a small civilization there with our language, with our culture still existing. Like, amazing. That proves that we are old here and authentic.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, you're in the cradle of civilization now, where you are.
Who knew?
Well, fantastic. Well, final question for you, Flo. I know you've given us a lot of your time, and it's a question we ask all our guests. So I know you speak 4 languages, including Albanian. And if you were to start a new language, to learn a new language, which one would it be and why?
About this question, so the first thing that comes to my mind, that pops to my mind, is Chinese. There's no doubt about it. Whether it's for political or economical reasoning, whether it's for job market, for development, or for whatever you take in consideration, Chinese is a language that will gain huge importance and value in the next decade or so. So I would advise Chinese. But if you want to fall in love with art and beautiful music, and I would go with Japanese. Okay. I was obsessed with it for a certain time. It's so tough to learn it. I gave up, of course, but I still am obsessed with the art and the cinematography of Japan. I even have a Medium channel where I write about art, and I have included a Japanese artist there. So yeah, is whether Chinese if you want to be relevant for the job market in the future, or Japanese if you are an art lover like me.
So there would be the language of reason and the language of the heart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for me at least.
Yeah, it's funny because it's the first series of our podcast, and we've had a few guests already, and I think out of all the guests, you're the third one who would choose Japanese to learn Japanese. So there you go. It's and Japanese win hands down as a language that people would love to learn.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Well, with it, the musicality in it, and it's poetic. It's absolutely poetic as language.
Well, thank you very much, Flo. It was a pleasure, a delight having you on the podcast. And yeah, I hope we can catch up soon.
Absolutely. Likewise, I have had such a blast and such fun. And you make like my geek heart happy talking about languages and stuff like that. And I love talking about these things. So thank you so much for this opportunity and to talk together. Hopefully we'll catch up together.
Thank you.
Thank you.